She said it across the table, not quietly, making sure the waiter and the people nearby could hear. She told me her ex wanted her back and asked me to convince her to stay. I asked her the same question. She had no answer. I paid my half of the bill, left cash on the table, and walked out without looking back. My name is Mason Reddan, and I install security systems for a living. I know how to watch, how to wait, and how to see things other people miss. What I missed was my wife Bree turning into someone I didn't recognize. The restaurant was one of those trendy Dallas places where they charge $30 for pasta, and the waiters introduce themselves like they're auditioning for a reality show. Bree had picked it naturally. She always picked places where she could be seen. "Mason," she said, leaning back in her chair with that practiced smile she'd been wearing more often lately. "I need to tell you something." I looked up from my overpriced chicken. The waiter, a kid named Trevor who'd told us 3 times about the wine pairings, was hovering near our table. 2 women at the next table had their phones out, probably posting pictures of their appetizers. "Kyle reached out to me," Bree continued, her voice carrying just enough to reach the neighboring tables. Kyle Jenson, her ex from college, the gym owner with the perfect teeth and the Instagram account full of motivational quotes. "Okay," I said. "He wants me back, Mason. He said he made a mistake letting me go." She paused for effect, like she was delivering lines in a play. "So I need you to give me at least one good reason why I should stay with you?" The restaurant seemed to get quieter. Trevor the waiter pretended to wipe down a clean table. The women with the phones had stopped taking pictures. I set down my fork and looked at my wife of 8 years. Really looked at her. The blonde highlights that were new last month, the gym clothes she wore everywhere now, even to dinner, the way she held her phone face down on the table but kept glancing at it. "And can you give me even one reason why I should stay with you?" I asked. Her practiced smile faltered. She opened her mouth, then closed it. The silence stretched between us like a wire about to snap. "That's not how this works," she said finally. "Isn't it?" I pulled out my wallet, counted out enough cash to cover my half of the bill plus tip, and placed it on the table. "Seems like exactly how this works." I stood up, grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Bree's voice rising, calling my name, but I didn't turn around. Trevor the waiter was probably getting the show of his life. The Dallas heat hit me as I stepped outside. September in Texas feels like walking into an oven, but it was better than the air-conditioned theater I'd just left. I got in my truck and drove home to our suburban house in Plano, thinking about all the small signs I'd ignored. The secretive texting that started 3 months ago, the sudden interest in fitness, the way she'd started saying, "We need to talk about everything except the things that actually mattered," the credit card charges at restaurants I'd never been to. That night I went home and did simple things. I canceled the vacation reservation in my name. I logged into the streaming accounts and changed the passwords. I removed her from my phone plan and our shared calendar. Then I packed every document that mattered to me and put them in my car. I called my friend Walt, who works in IT security downtown. "I need a favor," I told him. "What kind of favor?" "The kind that involves changing locks and maybe checking some phone records." Walt laughed. "Finally figured it out, huh?" "Figured what out?" "That your wife's been training at Kyle's gym for more than just fitness." So I wasn't the only one who'd noticed. That should have made me feel better, but it didn't. It made me feel like the last person to figure out the joke was on me. 2 days later, I filed for divorce. No drama, no notes, just signatures and dates. I emailed copies to her parents and dropped another copy at her workplace front desk with her full name on the envelope. Bree worked as a legal assistant at a downtown firm. She liked to tell people she was in law, which technically wasn't wrong, but she answered phones and filed papers. Still, she knew enough about the process to understand what those papers meant. That same evening, I changed the locks. I boxed her clothes neatly and stacked them by the door. I left the ring on top of the boxes. My phone buzzed constantly. Text after text from Bree, then from her friends Jessa and Tara, then from her mother Sharon. I turned the phone off and sat in my quiet house, eating pizza and watching baseball. She showed up late, crying, saying her ex disappeared once things got real. She said it was a mistake. I opened the door just enough to slide the divorce papers toward her. I told her she already asked the question. I closed the door before she finished her sentence. But that wasn't the end. That was just the beginning. My phone buzzed at 6 in the morning. Unknown number. You should check out the gym's private Facebook group, the message read. Ask your friend Walt about burner accounts. I stared at the text for a full minute before it clicked. Someone was trying to help me, and they knew about Walt. In my line of work, you learn to trust anonymous tips, especially when they come with specific instructions. Walt showed up at my house an hour later with coffee and a laptop. You look terrible, he said. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. When's the last time you slept? What's a burner account? Walt grinned. Fake Facebook profile, untraceable, perfect for checking out places you're not supposed to be. He opened his laptop and started typing. What exactly are we looking for? Kyle's gym has a private group. I want to see what they're talking about. Kyle, as in your wife's ex Kyle? That's the one. Walt's fingers flew across the keyboard. Okay, I've got a profile set up. Name's Mike Thompson, generic white guy from Arlington. Likes sports and craft beer. Should blend right in. He navigated to Facebook and searched for Elite Fitness Dallas Private. The group had over 200 members, all photos of impossibly fit people holding protein shakes and flexing in mirrors. How do we get in? I asked. Easy. I'll request to join and say I'm new to the area, looking for a good gym. These places love new members. Walt clicked the join button and sat back. Now we wait. We didn't have to wait long. 20 minutes later, the request was approved. Welcome to the show, Walt said, scrolling through the posts. What I saw made my stomach turn. It wasn't just a gym group. It was a gossip network, a place where the members shared details about their personal lives, their relationships, their conquests. And there, in post after post, were pictures and comments about my wife. Check this out, Walt said, pointing to a post from Kyle himself. It was a picture of Bree doing squats, taken from behind with the caption, Bree's really improving her form. Some people are natural athletes. The comments underneath were worse, jokes about personal training sessions and one-on-one coaching. Bree had liked every single comment. There's more, Walt said, scrolling down. Look at this one from last week. Another post, this time from someone named Mark Patterson. The picture showed Kyle and Bree at what looked like a restaurant, sitting close together, sharing a dessert. The caption read, Some people know how to appreciate the finer things in life. That's the night she said she was working late, I said. Gets worse, Walt said. He clicked on a video post from 3 days ago. This was posted the day after your dinner. The video showed Bree and several other gym members at what looked like a bar. Bree was in the center of the group, laughing and holding a drink, while Kyle's arm was around her shoulders. The person filming was asking everyone to say something to the camera. When it was Bree's turn, she looked directly into the lens and said, Sometimes you have to choose between settling and living your best life. I'm done settling. The group cheered. Kyle squeezed her shoulder and leaned down to whisper something in her ear that made her laugh. This was posted at 11 p.m., Walt said. When did she get home that night? Midnight. Said she was working late on a case. Walt closed the laptop. I'm sorry, man. This is rough. But I wasn't feeling sorry for myself anymore. I was feeling something else entirely. Something cold and calculating. Can you get into the gym's security system? I asked. Probably. Why? Because I want to see everything, and then I want to make sure everyone else sees it too. Walt looked at me for a long moment. You sure about this? She asked me for a reason to stay. I'm going to give her every reason to leave. Over the next 2 days, Walt and I became digital archaeologists, digging through months of posts, comments, and private messages. The gym's Wi-Fi security was a joke, and their camera system was even worse. We found everything. Videos of Kyle and Bree in his office after hours, screenshots of text conversations where they mocked boring husbands and failed marriages, photos from dinners and trips that Bree had told me were work events or girls' nights out. The worst part wasn't the betrayal, it was the mockery. In post after post, comment after comment, they had turned my marriage into entertainment for their friends. Bree had shared details about our relationship, our finances, even our private conversations, all for likes and laughs from people who barely knew her. "Look at this one," Walt said, showing me a post from Bree's friend Jessa. "It's from 2 months ago." The post was a photo of Bree and Jessa at a wine bar with the caption, "Girls' Night." Sometimes you need to vent about how some people just don't appreciate what they have. Bree's comment underneath read, "Some people think marriage means you stop trying to be attractive or interesting. Thank goodness for friends who remind you that you deserve better." Kyle had liked the comment, so had a dozen other people from the gym. "They've been planning this for months," I said. "Looks like it. But here's the thing, Mason. You've got all the evidence you need for the divorce. Why not just let the lawyers handle it?" I looked at the screen, at the hundreds of posts and comments where my wife and her friends had turned me into a punchline. Because they made this public, they wanted an audience. I'm going to give them one. My phone buzzed, another unknown number. "Check your driveway," the message read. I looked out the window. My car was gone. "She took my truck," I said. Walt shook his head. "This woman has some nerve." But I was smiling. "Actually, this is perfect. She just made her first mistake." "How is stealing your car a mistake?" "Because I installed a GPS tracker in it last month. Company policy for all our vehicles." I pulled up the tracking app on my phone. And look where she is. The red dot was blinking at an address I recognized. Kyle's apartment complex. "Time to pay them a visit," I said. The tracking app showed my truck parked outside Kyle's apartment complex for 6 hours. 6 hours. While I was at work installing security cameras for a law firm downtown, my wife was playing house with her ex-boyfriend in my vehicle. I sat in Walt's car across the street from the complex, watching the entrance. It was one of those modern places with a pool and a fitness center and names like luxury living plastered on banners everywhere. The kind of place where people in their 30s pretended they were still in college. "There," Walt said, pointing toward the building entrance. Bree emerged first, wearing workout clothes and carrying a gym bag. She looked relaxed, happy even. Kyle followed a few steps behind, also in gym clothes, his hand resting on the small of her back as they walked toward my truck. "I can't watch this," I said. "Yes, you can," Walt replied, "because you're going to need this anger for what comes next." He was right. I watched Kyle kiss my wife goodbye in the parking lot. I watched her get into my truck and drive away while he went back inside. I watched, and I memorized every detail. "Okay," I said, "let's go to work." The plan was simple. If Bree wanted to make our marriage into public entertainment, I was going to give her the kind of show she'd never forget. But first, I needed more information. Walt had already hacked into Kyle's social media accounts. The man wasn't exactly a cybersecurity expert. His passwords were variations of his name and birth year, and he used the same password for everything. "Look at this," Walt said, showing me Kyle's Instagram messages. "He's been planning something big." The conversation was with someone named Mark Patterson, the same guy who'd posted the restaurant photo of Kyle and Bree. Kyle: "Party this weekend at Mason's place. Bree's got the keys." Mark: "Dude, that's cold, I love it." Kyle: "She wants to make it official, show everyone she's moved on." Mark: "What about the husband?" Kyle: "What about him? Guy's a loser. Installs alarm systems for a living. Probably doesn't even know how to throw a punch. I felt something shift inside me, something that had been building since that dinner at the restaurant. They're planning to have a party. At my house. When? Walt asked. I scrolled through more messages. Saturday night, 2 days from now. What are you going to do? I thought about it for a moment. I'm going to let them have their party. Are you insane? No, I'm strategic. I pulled out my phone and started making calls. Remember what I do for a living, Walt. I install security systems. I know how to watch people without them knowing they're being watched. The first call was to my company's equipment supplier. I ordered enough cameras and microphones to turn my house into a television studio. The second call was to a lawyer, not for legal advice, but for a list of witnesses who might be interested in attending an impromptu social gathering. The third call was to Bree's boss. Mr. Henderson, this is Mason Reddan, Bree's husband. I wanted to give you a heads up about something that might affect her work performance this weekend. Is everything all right? She's planning to host a party at our house to announce her relationship with another man. I thought you should know, given that she's been using company time and resources to coordinate this event. There was a long pause. I see. Thank you for letting me know. Of course, I wouldn't want her personal life to reflect poorly on your firm. By Friday evening, I had turned my house into a surveillance center. Cameras in every room, microphones in every corner, and a live streaming setup that would make a YouTuber jealous. I also sent invitations to a very specific guest list: Bree's parents, her boss, the neighbors, and several members of Kyle's gym who weren't part of his inner circle. The invitations were simple. Bree Reddan cordially invites you to witness her new beginning. Saturday, 8 p.m. Come see what she's been up to. I didn't sign my name. I didn't need to. Saturday afternoon, I moved my truck to Walt's house and watched the live feed from his laptop as Bree and Kyle arrived at my house with boxes of decorations and cases of alcohol. They were transforming my living room into a party space, using my furniture, my electricity, my home. Look at them, Walt said. They actually think they're going to get away with this. Bree was directing Kyle and Mark as they moved furniture around. She was in full hostess mode, the same way she used to be when we entertained my coworkers or her friends from the law firm. Except now, she was entertaining the man she was leaving me for, in the house we'd bought together. The guests are starting to arrive, I said, watching the feed. Cars were pulling into my driveway. I recognized some of them. Jessa's white BMW, Tara's red Mazda, several trucks that probably belonged to Kyle's gym buddies. But there were other cars too. Cars I'd invited. There's Henderson, Walt said, pointing to a black sedan. And isn't that Bree's mother? Sharon Kellerman stepped out of her Mercedes, looking confused and slightly annoyed. She was dressed for a dinner party, not whatever she was expecting to find inside. This is going to be interesting, I said. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Showtime. I looked at Walt. Ready? Are you sure about this? Once you go in there, there's no taking it back. I thought about the Facebook posts, the secret meetings, the months of lies and humiliation. I thought about Kyle's messages calling me a loser. I thought about Bree asking me to give her a reason to stay while she was already planning her exit strategy. I'm sure, I said. Let's go give them their show. We arrived at my house just as the party was hitting its stride. Cars lined both sides of the street, and I could hear music and laughter coming from inside. Through the front windows, I could see people dancing in my living room, drinking from my glasses, eating food they'd brought to celebrate my wife's new relationship. Last chance to back out, Walt said. Not happening, I replied, checking the live stream on my phone one more time. Everything was recording perfectly. You remember the plan? I go around back, you go through the front. We meet in the middle and watch the fireworks. I grabbed the tablet from the back seat. On it, I had compiled everything, The Facebook posts, the security camera footage, the text messages, the photos, months of evidence that told the complete story of my wife's double life. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. It was my house, and Bree still had keys. I walked in like I owned the place, which I did, and surveyed the scene. The living room was packed with people I recognized and several I didn't. Kyle was holding court near the fireplace, telling some story that had everyone laughing. Bree was in the kitchen, playing hostess, wearing a dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year. Nobody noticed me at first. I was just another face in the crowd, easy to overlook in my jeans and polo shirt. But then Jessa spotted me near the entrance. "Oh my God," she said loudly enough for half the room to hear. "Mason's here." The conversation died like someone had unplugged the stereo. All eyes turned to me, standing in the doorway of my own house, uninvited to a party being thrown in my honor. Bree appeared from the kitchen, her face cycling through surprise, anger, and something that might have been fear. "What are you doing here?" "I live here," I said simply. "Or did you forget?" Kyle stepped forward, all 6 feet of muscle and confidence. "Look, man, maybe you should leave. This isn't really your scene anymore." "My scene?" I looked around the room at all the faces staring at me. "In my house? Using my furniture and my electricity? You're right, Kyle. This isn't my scene. This is my theater." I held up the tablet. "And I've got quite a show for everyone." "Mason, don't," Bree said, moving toward me. "Whatever you think you know." "I know everything, Bree. The question is, do they?" I connected the tablet to my television, the same 65-inch screen Bree and I had picked out together 2 years ago. The room fell silent as the first image appeared, a screenshot of Kyle's Facebook post about Bree's improved form. "Let's start with some behind-the-scenes footage," I said, clicking to the next image. "This is from Elite Fitness Dallas's private Facebook group. Some of you might recognize it." Murmurs started around the room. Several of Kyle's gym buddies were shifting uncomfortably, probably recognizing their own posts and comments. "Here's a fun one," I continued, showing the photo of Kyle and Bree at the restaurant. "This was taken 3 weeks ago, on a Tuesday night. Bree told me she was working late on a case. Turns out she was working on something, just not what I thought." Bree's mother, Sharon, was standing near the back of the room, her face growing redder with each image. Mr. Henderson, Bree's boss, was taking notes on his phone. "Oh, and here's my personal favorite," I said, playing the video of Bree at the bar talking about choosing between settling and living her best life. This was posted the day after she asked me to give her a reason to stay married. Funny thing about timing. "Stop it," Kyle said, stepping closer. "This is harassment." "This is evidence," I replied. "Evidence of a months-long campaign to humiliate me in front of your friends while my wife planned her exit strategy. But here's the really interesting part." I clicked to the security camera footage from Kyle's gym. The video showed Kyle and Bree in his office, clearly more than just trainer and client. This was taken 6 weeks ago, while I was at work, installing security systems for other people. My wife was getting very personal training sessions. The room was completely silent now. Even the music had stopped. Bree was crying, but I wasn't sure if it was from embarrassment or anger. "You want to know the funniest part?" I said, addressing the room but looking directly at Kyle. "You called me a loser who installs alarm systems for a living. You said I probably don't even know how to throw a punch. You were half right." I walked over to where Kyle was standing, the tablet still in my hand. "I don't need to throw a punch. I just need to press a button." I hit play on another video, this one showing Kyle and Mark in the gym locker room, talking about their plan to take over my house and make Bree's new relationship official. "This was yesterday," I said, "planning a party in my house to celebrate stealing my wife, using my own home as the venue for my humiliation. That takes a special kind of arrogance." Kyle lunged for the tablet, but I stepped aside easily. He stumbled forward, off balance, and crashed into the coffee table, sending drinks and snacks flying across the floor. The room erupted in shocked gasps and nervous laughter. Someone was filming with their phone. Probably everyone was filming. "The thing about security systems," I said, helping Kyle to his feet with exaggerated courtesy, "is that they're designed to catch people doing things they shouldn't be doing. And brother, you have been very busy." I turned to address the room again. "Ladies and gentlemen, you came here tonight to witness Bree's new beginning. Well, here it is. She's beginning her new life as a woman who destroys marriages for social media likes and gym gossip. Kyle's beginning his new life as the guy who got outsmarted by a loser who installs alarm systems." Bree found her voice. "You're sick, Mason. This is sick." "What's sick," I replied, "is asking your husband to convince you to stay married while you're already planning your goodbye party. What's sick is turning 8 years of marriage into entertainment for people who barely know you. What's sick is using my house, my car, and my trust to build your new relationship." I looked around the room one more time. "The show's over, folks. Thanks for coming. Bree, Kyle, you can see yourselves out. Everyone else, there's the door." People started moving toward the exit, some quickly, others lingering to see what would happen next. Sharon grabbed Bree's arm and started pulling her toward the door, hissing something about embarrassment and family reputation. Mr. Henderson stopped near the door. "Mrs. Reddan, we'll need to discuss this situation on Monday morning." Kyle was still standing in the middle of my living room, looking like he'd been hit by a truck. "This isn't over," he said. "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's been over for months. You just didn't know it yet." As the last guest left, I sat down on my couch and looked around at the mess they'd made of my living room. Empty bottles, scattered food, decorations celebrating the end of my marriage. Walt emerged from the kitchen, grinning. "Well, that was something. Did you get it all?" "Every second. And it's already uploading to the cloud." I nodded and pulled out my phone. I had one more call to make. "Bree," I said when she answered, "you left some things behind. I'll have them boxed up by tomorrow. Oh, and one more thing. You asked me for a reason to stay. I just gave you every reason to leave." Monday morning brought consequences. My phone started buzzing at 7 a.m. with calls from numbers I didn't recognize. The first few were reporters from local news stations who'd somehow gotten wind of Saturday night's events. The next batch were lawyers, both mine and apparently Bree's. But the call that changed everything came from Detective Patricia Reeves with the Dallas Police Department. "Mr. Reddan, we need to talk. Can you come down to the station this morning?" "Am I under arrest?" "No, sir. But we've received some information that concerns you, and we'd like to discuss it in person." I met with Detective Reeves at 11 a.m. She was a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and the kind of no-nonsense attitude that comes from years of dealing with people's worst decisions. "Mr. Reddan, we've been investigating some irregularities in financial accounts around the city. Identity theft, credit fraud, that sort of thing. Your name came up in our investigation." "As a victim?" "That's what we're trying to determine." She opened a file folder and spread several documents across the table. "Are you familiar with these accounts?" I looked at the papers. Credit card applications, loan documents, bank account openings, all with my name, my social security number, my personal information, none of which I had ever seen before. "I didn't open any of these," I said. "We figured as much. The addresses are all wrong, and the employment information doesn't match your actual job. But here's the interesting part." She pulled out another document. The applications were all submitted from IP addresses that trace back to Elite Fitness Dallas. My stomach dropped. "Kyle's gym." "That's right, and here's where it gets really interesting." She showed me another set of papers. "These applications were submitted over the past 3 months, the same time frame that your wife was spending significant time at that gym." "You think Bree was involved?" "We think someone with access to your personal information was feeding it to someone else, someone who knew how to use that information to open fraudulent accounts." Detective Reeves leaned back in her chair. The good news is we caught it before any major damage was done. The bad news is this was just the beginning. She pulled out a laptop and opened it to show me an email thread. We found these communications on Kyle Jenson's computer when we served the search warrant this morning. The emails were between Kyle and someone named Marcus Webb, discussing a business opportunity involving high-value personal information and low-risk financial products. The correspondence went back 4 months. They were planning to steal my identity? Not just yours. We found similar information for at least a dozen other people, all connected to the gym in some way. Spouses, family members, friends. Kyle was running a sophisticated identity theft operation, using personal information gathered from his gym members and their families. I thought about all the times Bree had left her purse open, her phone unlocked, important documents scattered around the house, all the personal conversations she'd had in front of Kyle and his friends. Where's my wife now? That's what we'd like to know. She didn't show up for work this morning and her apartment is empty. What apartment? Detective Reeves looked surprised. The apartment she's been renting for the past 2 months, downtown near her office. You didn't know? I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. She's been living somewhere else? According to the lease agreement, yes. Signed it in July, paid 6 months up front. The detective studied my face. Mr. Reddan, when exactly did you find out about your wife's affair? Last week, at dinner. But you suspected before that? I had my suspicions, but I didn't know for sure until I saw the social media posts. Detective Reeves nodded slowly. Mr. Reddan, I think your wife has been planning this for a lot longer than you realized, and I don't think the affair was the endgame. I think it was the distraction. She showed me more documents from Kyle's computer, bank account information, investment portfolios, insurance policies, all in my name, all with details that only someone very close to me would know. They were going to clean you out, she said. The affair, the public humiliation, the divorce proceedings, all of it was designed to keep you distracted while they systematically stole your identity and your assets. How much? If they'd succeeded? Everything. Your house, your retirement accounts, your business assets. They even had applications ready for life insurance policies with Kyle as the beneficiary. The room started spinning. I gripped the edge of the table and tried to process what I was hearing. The party, I said suddenly. What party? Saturday night. They threw a party at my house. Bree said it was to announce their relationship. But what if it was something else? What if they were looking for something? Detective Reeves leaned forward. What kind of something? Documents, financial records. I keep important papers in a safe in my home office. I pulled out my phone and opened the security app. I can check the cameras. We watched the footage together on my phone. There it was, clear as day. While I was in the living room confronting Kyle and showing the social media evidence, Bree had slipped away to my home office. The camera showed her trying to open the safe, then searching through my desk drawers. She was looking for something specific, Detective Reeves said. Probably the last pieces of information they needed to complete the identity theft. But they didn't get it. No, thanks to your little show in the living room. You interrupted their plan without even knowing it. She closed the laptop and gathered up the documents. Mr. Reddan, you may have just saved yourself from financial ruin. What happens now? Now we find your wife and Kyle Jenson, and we put them both in prison where they belong. I walked out of the police station, feeling like I'd been living in someone else's life for the past 8 years. The woman I'd married, the woman I'd trusted with everything, had been planning to destroy me from the inside out. My phone buzzed with a text from Walt. You need to see the news. I turned on the radio in my truck. The local news was running a story about a multi-state identity theft ring that had been broken up by Dallas police. Kyle's gym was mentioned by name, along with several other businesses that had been used as fronts for gathering personal information. But the story that really caught my attention was about a woman who'd been arrested that morning trying to board a flight to Mexico using a fake passport. The woman's name was Bree Reddan. I pulled over and called Detective Reeves. "We got her," she said before I could speak. "DFW Airport, 6 a.m. flight to Cancun. She had a suitcase full of cash and a new identity ready to go." "What about Kyle?" "Still looking for him, but don't worry, Mr. Reddan. We'll find him." I hung up and sat in my truck for a long time, watching traffic go by on the highway. 8 years of marriage, and I'd never really known the woman I was living with. The affair had been bad enough, but this was something else entirely. This was calculated, methodical, and completely without conscience. My phone rang, unknown number. "Hello? Mason? It's me." Bree's voice calling from what I assumed was a jail phone. "I heard you got arrested," I said. "I need you to bail me out." I laughed. Actually laughed out loud. "You need me to what?" "It's not what you think. I can explain everything. Kyle made me do it. He said if I didn't help him, he'd leave me. I was scared, Mason. I didn't know what else to do." "You were scared? You were scared, so you decided to steal my identity and run away to Mexico?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. We were just going to take a little money, enough to start over somewhere else. But then Kyle got greedy, and things got out of hand." "Things got out of hand when you asked me to give you a reason to stay married while you were planning to rob me blind." There was a long pause. "You don't understand. You never understood. I needed more than what you could give me. What I couldn't give you. I gave you everything. My trust, my love, my entire life. And you turned it into a criminal enterprise." "Mason, please, I'm your wife. You have to help me." "No," I said. "I don't. You stopped being my wife the moment you decided I was worth more to you as a victim than as a husband." I hung up the phone and drove home to my empty house. There was still cleaning up to do from Saturday night's party, but for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. 3 weeks later, I was installing a security system for a family in Richardson when my phone rang. Detective Reeves. "We found Kyle Jenson," she said, "and you're not going to believe where he was. Try me. Your house. He broke in last night around 2 a.m. Neighbors called it in when they saw lights moving around inside." I dropped the drill I was holding. "Is he still there?" "Oh, he's still there, along with 2 of his buddies from the gym. They're all sitting in my interview room right now, trying to explain why they thought breaking into your house was a good idea." I finished the job in Richardson and drove straight to the police station. Detective Reeves met me in the lobby with a satisfied smile. "Want to see the footage?" she asked. We went to her office where she had the security video from my house queued up on her computer. "Your system caught everything. These guys are not criminal masterminds." The video showed Kyle, Mark Patterson, and another man I didn't recognize using a crowbar to force open my back door around 2 a.m. They moved through the house with flashlights, clearly looking for something specific. "They went straight to your office," Detective Reeves said. "Same place your wife was searching during the party." On screen, I watched Kyle attack my safe with various tools, while Mark and the other man searched through file cabinets and desk drawers. They were looking for the financial documents they needed to complete their identity theft scheme. "Here's the best part," Detective Reeves said, fast-forwarding the video. "Watch what happens at 2:30. The video showed Kyle finally getting the safe open. He reached inside, pulled out a manila envelope, and opened it eagerly. His face went from excitement to confusion to rage in about 3 seconds. "What was in the envelope?" I asked. Detective Reeves grinned. "Divorce papers, and a note that said, 'If you're reading this, you're under arrest.'" I had replaced all the important documents in the safe weeks ago, after I realized what they were planning. The only thing left inside was the finalized divorce decree and a note I'd written just in case they were stupid enough to try something like this. The note also mentioned that the house was under 24-hour video surveillance and that the police would be notified automatically if the safe was opened, Detective Reeves continued. Which they were. On the video, I watched Kyle lose his temper completely. He threw the divorce papers across the room and started smashing things: my computer, my desk lamp, picture frames. Mark tried to calm him down, but Kyle was beyond reason. That's when the patrol units arrived, Detective Reeves said. They found Kyle in your office, surrounded by broken glass and evidence of burglary, holding a crowbar and screaming about being set up. What are the charges? Breaking and entering, attempted burglary, destruction of property, and conspiracy to commit identity theft. Plus, we found more evidence of the fraud scheme on Kyle's phone. Text messages with your wife, planning the whole thing. What about Bree? She's looking at federal charges: identity theft, wire fraud, conspiracy. She's going to prison for a long time, Mr. Reddan. I should have felt satisfied. Justice was being served. The people who had tried to destroy my life were going to face consequences for their actions. But mostly, I just felt tired. There's one more thing, Detective Reeves said. Kyle wants to make a deal. He's willing to testify against your wife in exchange for a reduced sentence. What kind of deal? He claims the whole thing was her idea. Says she approached him about the identity theft scheme, not the other way around. He's willing to provide evidence that she was the mastermind behind everything. I thought about that for a moment. Bree, my wife of 8 years, the woman I'd trusted with everything, had not only cheated on me and humiliated me publicly, but had also masterminded a criminal conspiracy to steal my identity and leave me financially ruined. What do you think? Detective Reeves asked. I think they deserve each other, I said. But if Kyle wants to tell the truth about what really happened, I'm not going to stop him. 2 months later, I sat in a courtroom and watched my ex-wife get sentenced to 5 years in federal prison. Kyle got 3 years for his cooperation. Mark and the other man got 18 months each. During the sentencing hearing, Bree's lawyer tried to paint her as a victim of Kyle's manipulation. But the evidence was overwhelming. Text messages, emails, financial records, all of it showed that she had been the driving force behind the scheme. When the judge asked if she had anything to say before sentencing, Bree stood up and looked directly at me. I'm sorry, Mason, she said. I never meant for it to go this far. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. After the hearing, I walked out of the courthouse and into the Dallas sunshine. Walt was waiting for me by his car. How do you feel? He asked. Free, I said. For the first time in years, I feel free. What's next? I looked back at the courthouse where my ex-wife was probably being processed for transport to federal prison. 8 years of marriage, and it had all come down to this: a criminal conspiracy, a public humiliation, and a courtroom full of strangers deciding her fate. Next, I said, I go home to my quiet house, order pizza, and watch baseball. And I don't have to ask anyone's permission or explain myself to anyone. That sounds pretty good. It sounds perfect. We drove back to my house in Plano, the same house where Bree had thrown her goodbye party, where Kyle had broken in looking for documents to steal my life. But it was my house now, completely and totally mine. I had new locks, new passwords, new bank accounts, and a new security system that could probably detect a mosquito landing on the front porch. More importantly, I had something I hadn't had in months: peace of mind. That evening, I sat on my couch eating pizza and watching the Rangers play the Astros. My phone was turned off, my doors were locked, and for the first time since that dinner at the trendy restaurant, I wasn't waiting for the other shoe to drop. Bree had asked me to give her one good reason to stay married. I never did answer that question, but I didn't need to anymore. Sometimes the best reason to stay is knowing when to leave. And sometimes the best revenge is just living well enough to watch your enemies destroy themselves.